we have two members of our community who are some of those people who had the gvura, who had the strength, who are the heroes, who found the resilience to survive. We're going to hear from both of them tonight. First, we're going to hear from Mike Epstein, whose story this year, as he'll tell you in a second, has become quite famous. He's been featured on the news internationally, in the national media, including today in the national media in Israel. We're going to share that video with you also. We're going to find out today what is so incredible about Mike's story that the whole world is now seeing it this year. And those of you who come to shul regularly, Mike is a regular in our community. He hasn't been up to making the trip down from the tri-state area the last couple of years since COVID, but before that, he was a daily member of our minyan and a cherished member of our community. And it's great to see Mike still going. In fact, Michael is still going so strong that he's going to go first, take some questions, and then he's going to leave because he's giving a presentation live at 8 p.m. at his shul. And he's being asked to give these presentations all over now because of his remarkable story. And I volunteer with Mike to help him and share all of his multimedia presentation. He said, no, I got it all. I can handle it. So I'm just going to sit back also and listen to Mike's incredible story. And followed by Mike, we'll hear from a second famous member of our community, Regina Behar, who wrote an amazing book, Threads of My Life, an immigrant's memoir that I have right here, all about her escape from Yugoslavia to Miami Beach, another act of gvura, another act of resilience to survive, of heroism. I'm going to turn it over now to Mike. Mike, if you're able to share your story, I'm going to give it up to you.
Let me see if I can do it.
I'm going to pin Mike also.
Hold on, don't go away.
You got it.
No, I know I got it. I gotta find it.
Well, Mike, I have a backup just in case we can't find it. There you go.
I can find it. I got it.
Pero tuve aquí como que el nombre de la persona. Sí.
Okay, let me just do this. First of all, how are you, Nate? And how are you, Freddie? Good to see you guys. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. My story is it spans 10 years. And it starts in September 1st, 1939, when Germany invades Poland, and it ends May 11th, 1949, when I arrive in the Bronx, New York. That's about 10 years. And it starts off with me. I was born in 35, so when Germany invaded Poland, I was 4 years old. It's me and my father at that point has been in the Polish army because they expect Germany to invade, and he and my mother had agreed that should Germany invade, that she would take me and move east away from the German onslaught and go to a town called Białystok on eastern Poland, which we did. And then when finally the Polish army disintegrated, that part of it anyways, my father somehow made it back there, and we met up in Białystok. We had most of us had intentions of going back to our home when Germany was defeated. As soon as Germany invaded Poland, this war started because Britain and France declared war. So most of us thought that it would be a short war and we can go back to our home. We did not want to go to Russia. Because Russia had a bunch of stuff that we was including practicing. We weren't able to practice our religion. The whole system was all messed up. We did not like Russia. So anyways, we got stuck.
Mike, can I point out two things? First, we can only see your nose. So if you could move back just a tiny bit or move the screen, we want to see your whole face. Perfect. And second of all, Mike, right now we're not seeing anything on the screen. We're just seeing the word Zoom. So I don't know if you think you're sharing with us during your talk, but you're not sharing with us.
Oh, so I got problems. Hold on.
Give me a second. Let me fix it. Hold on.
Okay, no problem.
Oh, I'm well.
Sorry for the complications, guys. What I'll do in the meantime, I'm going to try to find the, let's do it. There we go. Okay, now you're sharing your chronology with us.
Okay. So anyways, I started off telling you guys there, and that September 1st, 39, Germany invades Poland from, of course, Germany's on the west, coming east. My mother takes me and runs away from the Germans, which means going east towards Russia, to meet my father in Białystok, a town in Poland near the Russian border. Unbeknown to us, in August of that year, a month before, Germany and Russia signed a non-aggression pact. They wanted to attack each other. And part of that agreement was that they want to split Poland into two. Germany taking the western part and Russia taking the eastern part. And what happened was, if you go to the next chart, this is how the division was. And look where Białystok wound up. Białystok wound up on the Russian part. Can you see? Yeah, I guess you can see.
Yeah.
So we wake up one morning and find out that we're in Russia. So what happens then is, Russia. By the way, when I say it's us, there must be about 100,000 or more. A lot of people were there. So Russia needs people to work to generate the energy for them, for the tree with lumber and coal, and so. But those things are plentiful and in Siberia. So Russia sees all these people around doing nothing, so they take us all unwillingly and put us into trains and ship us to Siberia to work in what's called forced labor camp. I'll show you some pictures in a few minutes. So we work. I'm going to summarize what this chart is, then show you some stuff. So we were transported to Siberia, where it's terrible. Environment is terrible. Conditions are terrible. You'll see in a few minutes. People are dying left and right. The Russians are not killing us like the Germans intentionally, but many of us die. In fact, my uncle, one of my uncle, they had a child there, and the child died right there because of lack of medical attention. Anyway, so comes June of 41, which is and we're in Russia, we're in Siberia. Germany violates the pact that they made and invades Russia. Russia and Germany makes a lot of headway occupying Russian territory till the Russians try and catch their breath. The Russians conscript every possible Russians able-bodied went into the army, which leaves a big hole. We're taken to fill that hole, of course, as I mentioned before. In addition, if you look at the map that I just showed you of when the in the Russian territory of Poland, there are many battalions and divisions of Polish soldiers intact. Russia says we need those people. We need them to fight on our side to fight the Germans. So they make an agreement with so the Russia makes an agreement with the Polish government in exile to have those soldiers come under their control, and the Polish government in exile agrees on one of the conditions is that they free Polish citizens that are now in forced labor camps in Siberia. So one day we wake up and we're told we're free. We can go wherever we want. And of course, all of us, every one of us, ran south to away from the terrible cold weather, and we made our way down to what's in Turkestan, Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan, and so on. I want to show you, give you an idea of the map, what's going on. You'll see, I don't know, my cursor doesn't seem to, here's my cursor. We start off in Poland. We go to the Polish border. We wound up in Russia and Siberia. From Siberia, we went down all the way to Uzbekistan. When the war ends, we go from Uzbekistan. We run back to Poland. Find out nobody's alive that we want. We'll go to Germany in DP camp. From Germany in DP camp, we make it back to the United States. Now, so let me give you an idea of what some of the charts. Good-looking kid. This is me, by the way. This is me, 1939, around 39. I made it sound easy to go from us to Bialystok, from Bialystok down up to Siberia. Not so easy. Most of the time we walked. There was no public transportation. Any trains, any reasonable trains, passenger trains were used up for the military effort. So either you walked, you had a horse and cart pulling your stuff, or what we call the cattle train. And we even used the barge. The cattle train, I'll show you what a cattle train is. This is a cattle train. The cattle was being transported, but the people, they packed 40 or 50 of us into one of these cars and closed the door and shipped us to Siberia. It was no fun living in those cars. There was no toilet. There were people every time the train stopped, people ran out to go to the bathroom. It was real bad stuff. Food. So it took us about 3 or 4 weeks with the cattle train and a barge at the end to get from around Bialystok to the village we were in Siberia. By the way, you may know the Siberia now. In these days, it's called the Gulag, but that's Siberia. In Siberia, this is what this is living conditions. This was downtown the village.
Sophia,
I don't remember the name of the village. I was young, and I never wrote it down. I just don't remember. I'm sorry. But they're all alike. Like my wife, who happens to was at that point they lived in a village called Komi. Komi was an area. But anyways, in these huts lived 4 or 5 families. It wasn't just one person. And to give you an idea, the hut had the floor. There was no floor. The floor was the ground, was the earth. And some huts had heaters, some did not. This is how we lived. This is how we drove, how we transported, and this is how we lived. This is how we worked. My father worked in the coal mines, and my mother worked in. They were chopping down trees and cleaning the trees, as you can see, and putting them in the river to flow down to where they needed them for energy. So this could be very well be me. I was 4 or 5 years old, 5, 6 years old. I was helping a little bit, but I also went to school a little bit. But anyways, to give you an idea, for instance, we had no shoes, and the weather was terrible. We had to use rags around our feet to work with, to instead of shoes. You can see the workday was 12 hours. Anyways, bad stuff. But it lasted a year. So after the as I mentioned to you, the Russians finally freed us, and we all ran away, and we went down south. And we wound up in a place called Uzbekistan, who was in a city called Turkestan, and this is a Muslim country. It was Muslim, and you can see it. Men wore robes. Married women covered their faces. There was no bathrooms. Even there was no bathrooms.
Ma?
Wood ovens were outside. You know, there was no cutlery. There was a Jewish community there, and they were very helpful to us. Or at least we lived a semi-normal life over there till the end of the war. We didn't know anything what was going on in the war, but when the war ended, we all wanted to go back home, figuring we're going to go meet up with our relatives. Just a point of information. My mother was 1 of 7. My father was 1 of 7. The only ones that left that survived was my father's brother and my mother's brother. The rest of it, with their families, were all gone. So we didn't know that yet when we were in Turkestan. So we all wanted to go back. So we made our way back whatever way we can, and it took us about a few months to get back, and then we went back. We went back to Lodge. We came back to Lodge and found out, number one is the apartment that we lived in. Polish people were there, and they were moving. They didn't go anywhere. They didn't want to leave, and we found nobody of our family was alive anymore. And not only that, the Poles were still killing Jews at that point. Jews were being killed by Poles after the war, right in that period of time. So we got the hell out of there. We went back to Germany, but this time, of course, the Allies had it under control, and we went to the American zone and wound up. They had these hundreds of thousands of people walking around all over this area of Europe, not knowing what to do with themselves. There's nobody. There's no home. They have almost nothing left of their family. So they create the the Allies, Americans and the British and I don't know about the French, took areas and created called camps where these people who didn't were directed to these camps where everything was provided free to them. These camps were called displaced persons camp. The one we wound up with was a town called Feldafing, which happens to be right out of near Munich in Germany. There were about 3,000 or 4,000 people there, 99% Jews. The Feldafing was a community, self-sufficient community. We had our own schooling system. We had our own medical system. We had our own bakery. We had our own butcher. We even had our own money. But everything was provided to us. Most everything came from the U.S. Basically from controls, from contributions, from people who from here. The Joint Distribution Committee was a big supplier there and the security for outside the camp and was provided by the American soldiers at that point under control of General Eisenhower. I didn't spell Eisenhower correctly, I noticed. So my next chart basically talks about what I have said before. What we were in the camp, what we wanted most at that point was to go to Israel, to Palestine. However, we couldn't because the British wouldn't let us in. Some made it in illegally, but most of them couldn't get in there. So the next best thing is we tried to get into America, which is the United States. It wasn't easy. Getting into America was not easy because you had to, in order to get into America, to the United States at that point, you had to have somebody in the United States sponsor you, guaranteeing that when you get there, you will not be dependent upon any support from the government. That this sponsor will take care of you, will feed you, will do everything necessary to keep you off the books from the government as far as support is concerned. So it turns out, let me show you some pictures of Feldafing. This is a group of kids. In fact, you see the circle right there? That's me. See the red circle?
Yeah, we see it, Mike. Amazing.
Yeah, that's me. Oh, let me tell you about this famous picture now, and I want to play this 2-minute video. I put this in the middle here. This picture on the left is the Cheder in Feldafing. The Cheder is a little boy's young kid's yeshiva. And the picture, here I am right there. This picture, I was giving a presentation about a month ago to a local yeshiva here, and I was showing this picture. After this, the photographer who happens to was taking videos of my speech, comes over to me and says, you know, a young guy who the photographer happens to go was at another presentation a year earlier where somebody showed that same picture. So we found the photographer remembered where the presentation was. It turned out to be 40 miles from Long Island. We found the person who gave that presentation, which is this person right there, Eva Rosenberg.
Amazing.
So we got to, obviously we found each other, we got together, and here is I'll show you a quick 2-minute video. This is me, this is him right there, and this is Avram's sister. She also was a friend of him. Let me show you something. What happened?
You don't have volume on
Hold
your
on.
video. You gotta turn the volume up. You know what, Mike? Why don't I share it, because I have it up right here. Mike, you gotta push the volume button next to it right there. See that volume button? All right, so Mike, what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna stop your share. Mike, you'll get back to it in 1 second, okay? And Mike, and I'm gonna show this right here because I have it.
Stop it and the rabbi's gonna show you.
You gonna show it?
Orthodox synagogue in New Hyde Park, two men in their 80s reunited Sunday for the first time since they were children in a displaced persons camp in Germany for Jews right after World War II. Abe Rosenberg was about 5 years old, Michael Epstein about 10, when this photo was taken around 1947 at the post-war camp run by the U.S. Army.
6 years. 76 years. We just saw each other.
Rosenberg and Epstein might well have run into each other decades earlier, but didn't after both immigrated to America in the late 1940s.
Well, it's really unbelievable. We went to the same school together, college together.
City College in Manhattan, where neither knew the other was a student there around the same time, nor later at work as engineers at an aerospace contractor.
At one point, we worked in the same company in New Jersey called the Bendix Corporation. I worked on the Concorde supersonic transport, the autopilot system. He worked on the older space program.
Friends and family crowded a reception to hear stories of suffering and survival.
They took us to forced labor camps in Russia, in Siberia, and the transportation was, we were transported in cattle cars being the no 30, 40 people in a car.
Jewish children who lived through the war, like Rosenberg and Epstein, there were precious few.
1.5 million Jewish children were murdered that day.
Vow to never ever forget what happened amid the bittersweet memories of rediscovering lost youth. Steve Langford for Newsday TV.
so it's amazing. It's
The
amazing.
next picture I want to show you was, this is me on the left right there.
Well, Mike, you have to reshare your screen again.
Oh, I don't know how to, somebody help me here.
So while Mike's doing that, Mike, while you do that, I have another video because Mike's story didn't just make it in America, he became world famous this year. So you have a celebrity in your hands right now. This is channel 13 in Israel.
Yeah, but that's 10 minutes.
I'm not going to show the whole 10 minutes. But I just want to show some highlights of it.
Wow.
Hello,
Oh my gosh.
Ada, good to see you. Ladies.
Unbelievable.
That's the Zoom, that's the screen you're sharing.
זה מיוחד, מרגש, מטלטל. רגע שלי, אחרי יותר מ-70 שנה, בין 3 ניצולי שואה, 2 אחים, וחברם למחנה העקורים.
Unbelievable moment. Suddenly the reality of that picture, which I've seen for all these years, is real. Michael's real. I guess I'm real too.
We were together.
Okay,
in a mandolin band, playing the mandolin.
בכל הזמן שעבר מאז, האח והאחות עדה ואייבי לא ידעו מה קרה למייקל והאם הוא חי. הוא לא ידע מה עלה בגורלם, אבל לפני כמה שבועות הם גילו את הבלתי ייאמן, שבכל הזמן הזה הם היו במרחק לא גדול.
What they're saying is that they didn't know if they were alive, but the whole time they were close to each other. So you know the story already, so I just wanted to show you.
To realize at this age that you have a friend from the camp right next to you.
Well, that was a pure coincidence and just happened. I've been talking to different groups, kids, about my experiences under a program called Names Not Numbers. This is the photograph of the cheder, well, not a yeshiva, it was a cheder. Michael similarly has been talking to groups in New Jersey and elsewhere.
So,
the same photographer.
So you guys know the story, so I'm not going to repeat it, but I just wanted to show you that Mike's become famous. Mike, isn't there also another story about who one of your rabbis were? I don't want to give it away. In your cheder, in the DP camp, and the connection to our community.
Oh yeah, Rabbi Meyer Abramowitz.
You want to tell that story?
Yeah, well, Rabbi Meyer Abramowitz was the chaplain, American chaplain. He was assigned to work in the camps like Feldafing, and he did wondrous things for us.
But when you joined our community, Mike, you weren't even aware, right? You didn't even realize. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
You didn't tell.
By the way, there's another connection to your community with me. Bet you didn't know that one. Let me show you. I got. How come I can't move my slides?
You have to. I think there's a. There you go.
Right there. That's Jaime and Bella Eisenbaum. Anybody remember them from Ner Tamid? They lived on what's the island?
Well, Ner Tamid is just 2 blocks north of Menorah. Now it's the Yeshiva Elementary. They lived most of you. They lived right there, and they were contributors to Ner Tamid. Jaime was my mother's cousin, and he's the one who sponsored to take us out. And by the way, and on the left is in the papers that he filled out to sponsor us. He had to show how much money he makes, whether he can support us. The one on the right is my parents' marriage certificate. Of course, they didn't have the original one. In order to get into the United States, we had to be married, so they got remarried again. Mike, we have another presentation, and you have another presentation to give. Is there anything that any closing words before we open it up for a question or two that you want to tell?
I have some. Let me just do one more picture, and then I'll have closing words. What you have, this is what the way we are right now. God's been very good for Barbara and me. On your left are me and Barbara and our grandchildren. And I must say that this young man is really wonderful, great addition to the family, but he's not my grandson. He's the husband of my granddaughter. His name is Eric. So he snuck in. We love him though. Anyways, you say all my grandchildren and my great-grandchildren. This is what we got to work through right now. My takeaway: we live in a great country. We used to, in my generation in Europe, when we refer to America, we refer to it as the Golden Medina. Golden. I assume you all know what Golden Medina means. It's basically we said that you can find gold in the street. When we got here, of course, there was no gold in the street. But as far as I'm concerned, there's plenty of gold on paper. This is a wonderful country, and the gold is the United States Constitution. That's what the gold is. And by the way, there's more room to be. We still have to do work to dig out more good stuff from the United Constitution. It needs to be more mined. The second takeaway is we have a great Eretz Israel. It needs to be supported, and we have a great Torah. I call it there are diamonds in the Torah, and we have to work at it to dig them out to learn more what God intended us to do. I'm finished.
Thank you.
Yeah, by the way, I have a song to sing, but I guess if you don't want me to sing it, I won't sing it.
Well, let's save it maybe because I know you have another person to go. What's that?
Sing it.
Let me sing one stanza.
Okay, go ahead, Mike. One stanza.
Could you move it down? This talk.
I can't do anything because you're controlling the screen, Mike.
Sag nicht keinmal, als der Geist im letzten Weg, wenn Himmel bleibe, verstehen neue Tag. Kommen wird doch unser euch gebänkter Schau. So wird der Volk von unserem Volk bis dann da. Du grünem auf allem Land bis weißen Land von Schnee. Wir kommen unser Weg ein. Und wie gefallen ist Spritz von unser Blut. Schwarzen wird doch unser Gut. It's a partisan song. It's a song saying that we're not out. We're going to come back and we're going to be stronger than ever. Thank you very much.
Mike, can you stop the share so we can see everybody? There you go. All right. Shkoyach, Mike. We have guys, don't go away because we have another equally amazing presentation. And I know Mike has to go in 1 minute, but if anyone has any questions for Mike, he'll take 1 or 2 questions right now about his journey. And if you have a question, you can unmute yourself. Don't be shy. No questions at all.
Who's your favorite grandchild?
I think that's a softball question. What do you think? You might get in trouble.
All right, I've got a question for you. So what lesson do you want to teach to your grandchildren and great-grandchildren about your experience if you had to encapsulate it in a minute or 2?
What lesson? That it's very important to keep your Jewishness, to be proud of being a Jew, and to be it's very important that the Jewish people is that we have Israel now. It's 2 things. Number 1, keep your Jewishness and you make sure your children are Jewish, and number 2 is support Israel to make sure Israel is there as it should be.
Shkoyach, Mike. Mike, we want to thank you so much.
Amen.
For doing this for us, and we take great
Amen.
inspiration in your story. May you live ad mea v'esrim until 120 with the gvura, with the strength and the koyach and the chizuk to continue telling your story to the generations, because we need to hear your story. Amen, amen.
Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Mike. Okay, that was part 1. We have an equally compelling story from Regina. Regina is at least she's in the middle of my screen, and I'm going to spotlight her in 1 second. Regina came from an opposite part of Europe, and many people think that only Ashkenazi Jews suffered in the Holocaust, but that's not true. In fact, Regina's father was a Sephardic rabbi and cantor, leader of her community in Yugoslavia, and they suffered terribly under the Holocaust as well. Regina is going to tell her story. I have taken her amazing book, Threads of My Life, that is available to anyone who wants a book afterwards. I'm not sure if that's true, Regina, but I hope you have lots of copies. I have some slides from it. So you'll see me coming in and out of sharing the screen, but I'm going to spotlight Regina right now. And Regina, when you can go ahead and don't worry, I'm going to sometimes share and sometimes you can see her face and you can see her slides as it is appropriate for the story. So Regina, I think you have to unmute yourself, Regina. I think you're muted, which would be,
Okay.
There you go. Hi,
I'm
Regina.
very happy that Michael is much older than me, a full year. I'll just read this part and then I want to tell you little different stories during the years, very similar years that Michael mentioned. I was 5 when all this started for me, and it kind of ended in 1949 in a DP camp also. Anyway, I feel very responsible to tell our story. It's our tradition not to forget, but I want to ask all of us, does it help us to solve the problem or does it make it worse? Now that we all know what happened, what will we do? How do we apply it today? Anyway, I am here because I am the revenge of Hitler. I'm alive. I'm a revenge. My children and my grandchildren are the revenge on the person who tried to annihilate me and all my people. I realized at a very young age, at a very impressionable child, that the Germans wanted to kill me. I was hated. I had to leave my doll in the gazebo where we were running away from the people who didn't even know me, but they hated me. That hate stuck with me. Thanks to them, my entire life has been filled with that self-hate. I had to work very hard to get rid of it. And more importantly, I'm fascinated by the fact that someone's idea about you can affect your inner being. You internalize this hate and it makes you unworthy. That is wrong and incorrect. And I proved it otherwise. My life was rich with Jewish values and integrity. I see the good in people and accept all people as they should be accepted in personal life and in work life. My Jewish values are incredible contradiction to the hate that I felt from the Germans. My mother, it's been a sad day all day just thinking about this. This is not easy. I spent a big portion of my life trying to pass this like it never happened, although I don't forget a single day that it did happen. My mother was a deeply spiritual woman. She was full of faith. She had so many expressions that she used to say. She would talk about and share, and I want to share some of them with you. Love your neighbor like yourself. Love everyone. Be good to everyone. We are the people of the book. That was her main lecture to me. We are the people of the book. Everything was solved by the Torah. God is going to figure this out. God will take care of it. She's said this anytime things seem to be too bad or too difficult. She would say, God has a plan. We have ideas, but God knows better. I want to share a few little stories that my father, as the Rabbi Cantor said, was a rabbi in Skopje, Yugoslavia, where I was born. And from there, we got word that things were getting rough and we better leave. And so we started a journey to go from Skopje, which is in Macedonia, to go to Croatia, where my father's family was from. My mother's family in Serbia, on the other hand, none of them survived, not one person. They were, and Rabbi Kent Kunis, would you show them the picture of those beautiful people who were killed in there? This was my mother's brother and one wife and sister. These are the people that were Jewish and had to die. Spent a large part of my life feeling very that I didn't suffer enough because I didn't go to a concentration camp. But I was in displaced persons camps in these barracks with 200 people in it, and with bunk beds, two people up on the top and two people on the bottom. My brother and I on the top, my mother and father on the bottom. The picture that the rabbi just showed you, my mother was such a great needle person. She made out of rags this dress out of 2 pieces of fabric. And there was another little girl in the camp. Where was I just before that? Anyway, that's the camp. See, that's the barrack. Thank you, Rabbi Kunis. That's where 200 people fitted. My barrack was the one on the right, exactly that one. And I learned all about life in that barrack. There was not all Jews, but mainly Jews, and mainly from Poland. I learned a little bit of Yiddish there. One of my Yugoslav cousins married eventually a Polish boy who was there too. So this Yugoslav person and this Polish person got married because people were so lonesome. This was toward the end of the war. But anyway, I want to go back to my family a little bit. I have so much to say that I feel I'm a little confusing, but I hope you can follow it. We got word in Split, when we got to Split, my father's town, that the Jews are being picked up. This is in Croatia. Croatia was occupied by the Italians at that time, and the Italians were not as cruel as the Nazis. But my parents got word that that was ending, and they were gathering the Jews, and that we better leave immediately. So my parents left with 30 other people. We were a total of 30 people. My parents were in their 20s. Remember, there were such young people, and I was 5, my brother was 3. So we left and we walked through the mountains for 20 days, all the way from Split to the end of Yugoslavia, where we got nearer to Italy, where we ended up in DP camps. Through the mountains, we lived, I don't know how we survived. 3 weeks with only St. John's bread to eat, traveling by night because there was shooting in the daytime, so we had to go at night when people couldn't find us. Just pick it up. My father would carry me because I was, I guess, little, 5, yes, and try not to lose the people that were walking through the mountains. We ate St. John's bread, which was horse feed, but it was sweet enough, and that kind of made us survive. When we got to the edge of Yugoslavia, we went by little boats to Bari, which was at the tip of Italy, which was now liberated. This is probably around, in the high 40s. And it was run by Allied soldiers, and Israeli soldiers too were part of it, because the Israelis were part of the English army at that period in time. We were there with no school. And my mom, anytime she was in a town where there was a school, because one more addition, they moved these refugees from one town to another to whatever they could place us. And so if my mother found a town that there was a school, she would send us, but it was a Catholic school. But she would say, it's all right, don't worry, you can cross yourself. God will forgive us. He's not jealous, you can do this. And that's how she got a little education to us. And I think that's how I also was not too prejudiced against other religions. I was raised open-minded that God is one for all of us. I have one little story, and my stories are kind of out of order, just what happened. My mother brought a bracelet in a tube of toothpaste. And out of that, I cut it up because it was in links, and I made 6 bracelets for my grandchildren so they would remember some of their history, some of their legacy, some of their family. And I spoke to them today, they all have it. I was so happy that they still exist because they were just, I feel that's how we tell our story and continue our history. I wanted to mention my brother, who was 2 years younger than me and the real victim of the war. Because not only because he was a boy and he wasn't as involved as girls are. When we were being bombed in the mountains, he said, listen, there's white butterflies. The white butterflies will save us. The bombs will not hit us. And he was right. We didn't get hit by the bombs that day. And I love butterflies. And I remember my brother who he never was bar mitzvah. He never got to be bar mitzvah. He felt very cheated. I went to college at 35 because I wanted to prove that I wasn't stupid, even though I missed all those years of schooling. What I'm trying to tell you that the war gives you many scars, and it takes a lifetime to get over them, to and make up for it. And again, I say, it's my wonderful children and their wives. I have 3 sons and 10 grandchildren, 10 wonderful grandchildren who are all bar mitzvah, except for one yet, because he's still young. What else can I say? My father, just like our previous speaker, it took 2 years of writing letters to please let us come. We would not be a burden. My mother would sew, and she was the provider when we got to America. My mother got a job as a dressmaker, and that was who was our provider. My father never got over the war. The war gave him tremendous scars. He tried hard to make a living. He gave bar mitzvah classes when he was here. He was substitute for rabbis when they went on vacation in many, many temples in New York, even in Miami. So what I'm trying to say, the scars of war were many on my family, but we survived. Thank you, Rabbi.
I'm
Yes.
trying to find the picture of your dad
But
teaching.
I want to tell you a happy story. When we were in 1949, when Haham Gadol Gaon was the rabbi in London.
That's what you
he-
call a Sephardic rabbi, the great Sephardic
Right.
rabbi, Chacham Gadol.
Haham Gadol Gaon, his name was Gaon. This is a historic fact. He came to the DP camps and he said, who can I help? Who can I help? And my father was there and he was a colleague of his. So he took us to Ramsgate, Kent. Ramsgate, Kent has Montefiore's mausoleum. That's where Montefiore is buried. And they needed 10 Jewish people so they could have a minyan. So we got lucky that he picked us and we went to England for 2 years. And I had the fortune to go to school for the first time, real school, a girls' school. That felt wonderful. And but there was a big.
This is a picture, show all the pictures. This is children. I don't know if you're in this one, Regina, but this is children from your town of
Yes.
who were refugee children, 1943.
Yes.
We have some really cool. This is you guys at the memorial for Skup, where you're from.
In Israel. We too didn't want to go back. We wanted to go to Israel, but for some reason, I guess something between my parents, I was still a kid. We ended up in England for 2 years. And then from England in 51, we got to New York.
You have your papers to come to.
Right, there it is. Those are our papers. My mother on top and me and my brother on the side.
And then, there you go. There's Regina. There's your mom. There's your brother. And you actually found the list of passengers on your ship. Here you guys are right there. The 4 Altair.
Did you see that kosher meal?
Yeah, do I have it? Yeah, here's the kosher meal, strictly kosher menu on the Queen Elizabeth. When you guys came from England to America, you even had poached eggs on toast. Not too bad.
Right. And that was
the
the beginning of the wonderful life of England and United States.
Regina, are there any final words you want to give? Any lesson from all your struggles? We're all inspired by your story of resilience.
Yes, most of all, how hatred can really hurt the character of a person, and we must avoid that at all costs. And thank God that again, our Jewish faith, Rabbi Cantor, my sister was telling me that she teaches 9-year-olds, and they said, well, would you save Putin? Would you save, and our religion says yes, because you never know. That person might become a good person after that. Anyway, the Torah is there. We are the people of the book. And that's my one message, that thank God for that book. There is so much advice, so much wisdom every single time. And I'm fortunate that I've been with Temple Menorah. My grandchildren, who are 34 now, were named in Temple Menorah. So, and Rabbi Abramowitz was the rabbi who named them at that time, before even Perlson, before even Kunis. Anyway.
Does anybody have any questions for Regina?
Yes.
Before we conclude about her.
Thank you. Yes. Any questions?
About her amazing story and how they.
Yes, if I might. Hi, my name is Norma Orovitz. For all the years that I have known you, Regina, I have not heard your stories like this. The one about the bracelet literally brought me to tears, and the one of your brother and the butterflies. I urge you to keep telling your stories, because even when you have a good education in Holocaust studies, we need to hear firsthand accounts. And you are an ambassador and an exemplar. And I wish you a happy birthday tomorrow. May you live to 100 and sponsor.
Amen.
Amen.
Thank you.
Amen. Beautiful.
And Mr. Epstein, it was wonderful hearing you. I learned a lot, and I will become a little more organized so I can continue to tell this story. I wanted to help us, not hurt us, and that was my beginning quest with all of us. We have to make sure that we have to teach somehow not to hate us. It's a big dilemma, isn't it? I'm asking an amazingly big question, and it's not just Jews. But I think it's possible. I think we could learn. Even our own Jewish history has evolved in many ways. That's it. Thank you.
Well,
Regina, hi. Sorry, Danny Reed. Just quick, what's the name of your book and where is it available? Your memoir.
I've always given my book to anyone that's interested. I am beginning to think that I could do something more with it. So tell Rabbi Kunis and I'll get you that book.
Regina has a number of copies. Regina, if I can come get some copies from your home and leave it for people in the synagogue. We have a few in the synagogue as well.
Yes. And Rabbi Kunis, remember, you promised me you're going to find somebody who will help me to improve it on the book, because when I wrote it, I was so afraid to bore people, and there's so much more to say, and I can't. So I would appreciate if someone would come through and help me to get this task done. As you said, you might find somebody.
Amazing. Well, Chevra, again, I want to thank everyone who came out tonight. The biggest mitzvah we can do in the memory of all of our loved ones who were lost, including in my own family, and most probably in your families as well, is to learn Torah. And every Monday night we have a Torah class here many of our regulars who come usually at 7 o'clock are here.
Rabbi, Picard of Art. That was my mother's favorite book. Picard of Art, your book, the one you tell us every week.
Yes, Regina comes to the class. Regina comes regularly, and your sister Esther comes.
Alan, I see you.
Yes.
My son Alan is there.
Hi, Alan.
Yeah, and one thing that my mother left out, that she was Hitler's revenge at my grandson's bris, that she was there, and her name is Gigi now. Great grandmother.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Oh yes, first time.
Absolutely. And so tomorrow morning in synagogue is when it's appropriate to do a few special prayers for Yom Hashoah, which we will do in the synagogue tomorrow. I do usually teach a class on Monday nights, and we did have some regulars who are here for the class. So we are going to continue with that class in a moment. I wanted to, I'm of a younger generation, but I also have quite a few Holocaust stories in my family too. And just yesterday, my father's a rabbi in Atlanta, and they were doing a feature on NBC in Atlanta on the Holocaust, and they featured my father and my grandfather's story for a few brief moments, including a picture of him with my son, and my grandfather passed away a couple years ago. Was survivor. He was in Auschwitz for 18 months. He was really an Auschwitz survivor. In fact, when I went on the March of the Living, I found the barracks that he lived in for 18 months, and I lit yurtzeit candles there for all of his 12 brothers and sisters that passed in the Holocaust. His parents passed as well. His sister survived, but she was a Mengele experiment, and Dr. Mengele used to make her go outside in the freezing snow and ice, barefoot and naked. So she at the end of the war, when the Russians came, there was a heap of dead bodies, but she managed to raise her arm, and they took her out. But by that time she was deaf and mute for the rest of her life. And that was my Aunt Rosa Gittel. This whole generation has since passed. So they featured my grandfather very, very briefly. One cute thing I want to tell you about Rosa Gittel, my aunt, who was deaf and mute, and about, if I remember her being about 4'9" maybe. She apparently was a beautiful girl back in Siget where they lived, and she had a first cousin who remembered how beautiful she was before the war and not what she looked like now, and he married her. My aunt and uncle were first cousins, and they had 4 daughters, with no genetic problems, by the way, maybe bad teeth, that's about it, Baruch Hashem. And actually their granddaughter is the Rebbitzin, her husband's the rabbi at the Young Israel of Hollywood here in Miami, Rabbi Yosef and Rebecca Weinstock. And so, those stories of survival, someone lifts up their arm and look what happens. And so there's so many heroes. So I wanted to show you just a very, very short video. It's like 1 second, but it was just a cute picture when we went to go visit my grandfather, who's since passed, of my son Cole, who's now 9, switching hats with him. He used to wear those like Kangol type hats that a lot of people from the old country like to wear. They switched hats. Anyway, let me show you the video. It's very, very, just 1 minute of your time. My father's also featured speaking about the Holocaust. Here it is. For some reason, there's no vol. There you go.
Wears the Star of David because she wants to, not because she has to. Plus, she keeps another symbol for the children of resistance.
I am also wearing a butterfly.
I don't know this woman. It's another woman who they featured.
And that is very significant. Butterflies don't live in the ghetto. They don't live in the concentration camps.
That's Auschwitz, where my grandfather was.
They need to be free.
Reiner eventually ran to her freedom in America, but millions of others never got to see that. This genocide of European Jews lasted for at least 4 years. It brings back painful memories for Reiner.
Many people were unintegrated. I hope and pray that nothing like this of such a magnitude will happen again.
Rabbi Mark Kunis with the congregation of Sha'arei Shamayim says his father was also a survivor. Hope seems to be the theme that kept him and Reiner going.
He got 1 piece of bread a day to eat. He took a piece of bread and he exchanged it for the Spirit's filling. He had the faith that if he could connect with God through this filling, he would keep him alive another day.
With the rise in anti-Semitism lately in our country, Kunis says it's important to remember that we must never repeat history.
Whenever they could, the Jews stood up, and we have to stand up whenever we see hatred in this world, and never let this world sink to those depths again.
More wise words from Reiner. She says it's important to be tolerant and get along with people who don't look like you.
Okay. I'm going to stop the share. So as I mentioned, the thing that Hitler could not destroy was our spirit and our dignity that we have through our Torah. And so the best way to commemorate those that were lost once we remember their stories is to learn some Torah. So as I was telling you, every Monday night we have a class of Pirkei Avot, and some of our regulars are on, and actually quite a few of them. So this is going to conclude the presentation from our 2 survivors.